Some people believe ministry primarily happens inside a church building. But what if your business, the people you employ, the customers you serve, and the community you impact is one of the greatest ministry opportunities God has given you? Today's guest has served in traditional ministry within a church, corporate leadership, and now as a business owner. Doug Oakes is the owner of Can Do Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, and we're going to talk about how God used every chapter of his journey to prepare him to build a business centered on people, service, culture, and kingdom impact. This is Kingdom Entrepreneur, where it is his kingdom and your calling. Welcome to the show, my friend and our guest, Doug Oakes. Doug, thanks so much for joining Kingdom Entrepreneur today.
Thanks for having me here, Ray. Looking forward to
it. Me too. It's just in full disclosure, this is a take two because we're going to call it technical difficulties, and I was the technical and difficult. So here we go. Man, appreciate you and have for such a long time, but just start for our people listening to and watching the podcast. Give us a quick 60, 90-second overview of who you are and what brought you to this point in your faith journey and in your business journey.
Well, I was born and raised in a Church of Christ household. My dad's been a minister for, I don't think we should celebrate this, but I think it's been over 50 years now.
Wow, so, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that's my legacy. He was a Sunset grad, and I followed in his footsteps after attending AIM 30 years ago now. And so that's been part of my DNA from the beginning, and it's never left. Although obviously I found a path out of youth ministry and full-time paid professional ministry. There was always a hunger, even when I was doing youth ministry, to try to connect in you got to do it in quote the real world, right? There is no secular and sacred in my mind. It's all sacred. But I looked for opportunities when I was working with suburban youth that loved them, but they're spoiled. They're spoiled kids, had everything given on a silver spoon. But I would plug in. I was a hospital chaplain, on call on the weekends. I would look for opportunities with like a grief recovery house, just to be able to be in that place and in that time where you got to deal with people going through it, just right. in a place where they had problems and they needed those problems solved. When we started our family, we moved out to California and worked in the oil fields for 12 years to support the family. We weren't chasing a ministry position at that point. But I realized that God put me in a ministry position.
Yeah.
In fact, it was the opportunities I had in the oil fields ended up being, and from my perspective, more. And again, my perspective. So if someone's listening to this and they are full-time professional minister, this is not condemning that at all. It's needed. But from my perspective, I was put in a place where I got to fill a void. In people's lives that one maybe had never had a leader that cared about them before, that actually tried to, support them personally and professionally. So we worked really hard to build a workplace culture that didn't exist in the oil fields.
Yeah,
where people weren't treated like they weren't treated solely based on their employee ID number, and the dashboards that they were held accountable to. But we actually. Huge fan of focusing on the leading side of things, the behaviors, the values that drive the results. And hopefully the results are they're not the last thing we look at. The numbers aren't the last thing we look at, but if you're doing well on the front end, you kind of know what the back end's going to look like. And I just seen too much of the stick and not enough carrot over the years in some of those places. So It and especially in the oil fields. I mean, if your audience is, you're in Texas, right? So this is language you understand too. We're like the second panhandle of the United States out here in Bakersfield. So I'm sure some of your audience is like California. We know about California. Well, you probably don't know about Kern County, California, because
it's different. Huh?
It's different. It's not too far from West Texas. when you look at the landscape out here, and you drive 40 minutes outside of town, and there's hundreds of pumping units, and
Hmm.
it's a big deal out here. But that culture, not maybe not quite as bad as what you see dramatized on Landman and all that kind of stuff.
Hopefully not, but sometimes.
But there's a reason why they can characterize that. There was a time when it was that bad, and it's still very KPI driven and not people, which is not bad, but you got to balance it with the people and the
Right.
culture. Yeah. So that opened up a great door for me to consider that as a ministry. I could step in and try to take it to places that it hadn't been before. But after 18 years in California politics, there was an itch that needed scratching, and I wasn't able to do everything that I wanted to do, and
Mhm.
so I wrote my obituary, and
Okay, stop and explain that.
so I engineered an end of life story through the help, largely, not, he's not the only one to write about it, but Donald Miller wrote the book Hero on a Mission. And he went into more detail into how to do that than anybody else I'd read on
Hmm.
the matter. And so I just followed his plan to a T. And hey, what's the day of your death? How old are you going to be? Who's going to show up to your funeral? Why are they going to be there? What are they going to say about you? Put words in their mouth.
Hmm.
And then the big question is, from there, what has to be true about your life today and every day going forward for that to actually become a reality?
Okay. Can I
And
interrupt you there?
huh? Yeah,
Can I
absolutely.
interrupt?
100%.
Talk for a moment why you think it's so important to have a vision for what you want your life to look like so that you can make those steps early. Why has that life vision been vital for you?
Well, I try this as a leader. It certainly works for self leadership, but it should be with your audience as well. Um, what I was fleeing from in the oil fields is like, we're going to push this upon you, right?
Hmm.
What we want just gets pushed on you. And when you have a clear vision, it becomes a pull system.
Okay.
And, if you've ever, if I told you to move a wet noodle from one side of the table to the other, if you try to push it, it's not going to go very well.
Yeah.
But if you grab it by the other end and drag it, pull it,
Okay.
you're going to
Right.
make a lot of progress. And I think our visions function the same way. If you can have this great clarity in your mind of where you're heading, then like the moment I did this, so many things started to fall into place.
Hmm.
And as I became a business leader, there were things that I knew I wanted to be involved in within the community, and other things. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have, you know, 18,000 different things come your way about, oh, do this, and we
And
want
don't
you
you
to
wish
do
that was an
this.
exaggeration?
And it just gives great clarity not only to what you need to be doing, but what you need to not be doing.
Okay.
And and the clearer that is, the more decisive you can be with every hour of your day. That does not pertain to me. I heard someone talking about Elon Musk the other day, and it was actually it was Kevin O'Leary, I think, who
Uh-huh.
who worked for Tesla at one point, and he said there's a principle called signals and noise.
Mm.
You're gonna have 3 to 5 signals, and if you can stay focused on those, you can just move the needle in so many major areas in your life. But the problem is, if you let it, 75% of your day is going to be noise.
Yeah.
And it's the people that can stay focused on the signals and eliminate the noise that are going to make a difference. He said, now, if you take it to the extreme, like Elon does, he has no noise in his life. And the moment he hears it, he leaves a conversation or he leaves a meeting and he
Hmm.
ticks a bunch of people off. There are consequences to that relationally,
Right.
but if we're not paying attention to it and focusing on the things that are needle movers, again, you come back to the obituary, you come back to where you want to land at the end of your life. And you're not going to get there by spending 10% on the things that matter.
For sure.
Your life has to be dominated by the things that matter, moving you towards that vision for your life. And, I mean, for me, it became, a good midlife crisis, right? I was
Hmm.
probably 43, 44 when I wrote that. And, I'm like, man, okay, so 85 years old is when I plan on taking a dirt nap if God gives it to me. You know,
Yeah.
so what I got 40 years to work with. I've already passed the 50%. And, who knows how good the last 5 or 10 years will be. It depends on how well I eat between then and now.
Eat and exercise might be go a long
But
ways.
yeah, but that's and even that, I mean, that's a kind of a tongue in cheek kind of thing, but that also starts to change the way that you eat and the way that you
Yeah.
exercise and the people you surround yourself and the books you read and I mean the places you go and
Yeah.
there's not an area of your life that doesn't become impacted by that thinking because
Mm-hmm.
you want to be able to have enough productive years while you're here to get to that place
Yeah.
where you've made the impact that you think God can have through you. So.
Yeah. So as you think back, your career's taken you to ministry within a congregation, to working in the oil field, doing engineering operations, and now owning a growing plumbing and HVAC company. How do you see God connecting those seemingly completely different chapters of life and weaving those things together to bring you where you are? And how's that been a real blessing to your life, but also to others?
Yeah. It's interesting because when I read Hero on a Mission, I thought, man, I would love, like, I read it in my mid 40s. Like, what if I could have had it 20 years
Mhm.
ago, 25 years ago? And I thought, okay, could I get this in the hands of college students today and run them through? And how
Mhm.
could that expedite things in their life? And I agree. I'm thinking maybe I would wanted it sooner, but at the same time, I'm cautious
Yeah.
because of all the things that you just said. Because time in ministry, time at Lubbock Christian, Sunset, and the learnings I had in
Mm.
school, the oil fields certainly. I learned I would not be a successful businessman today if I hadn't been around every aspect of what a contractor does for those
Mhm.
12 years in oil and gas.
Wow.
And so I don't regret it at all. And I tell
Awesome.
people, okay, if you're going to engineer the end of your life and you've instead of 40 years, you got 70 years, don't rush it. Allow certain things to happen in the time that they need to happen because God is doing things in each area of that. And you may say, how do I get from here to there? And it doesn't, you're like, I can't see a path. Well, trust me, a Bible degree, a master's of divinity can make you a great plumbing
Mm.
and HVAC business owner.
Yeah.
It can.
Who'd have
Obviously,
thought,
there's a lot of other
right?
life experiences with that,
Yeah.
but it's everything in life is character
Hmm.
development and learning who to surround yourself with and growing your maturity as a leader, having an emotional intelligence to go with your IQ
Hmm.
and frankly you can't rush that. I mean, there's I don't know too many people that are born with a high level of emotional intelligence. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to practice it in
Got to practice
relationship
it.
with
Learn it
people.
the hard way sometimes. Yeah.
Yes.
And you made me think of that thing that's said so often when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and
Yes.
it is learning, and we bring some intention to that. But Sonia and I've said so many times, like I would not have chosen this path to get to this place, but I'm so grateful to be in this place at this time. Doug, I know you could have remained in corporate leadership for the rest of your life, yet you
Yeah.
chose business ownership. What do you think God was teaching you during that transition? First about himself and then about you and about leading others as the owner.
Yeah. Right off the top, it's about, um, understanding our identity in him and then who he is to lead us. Like if we really believe that
Mhm.
I was thinking about this morning, all the place if we strung together all the promises even in just the New Testament, but you go back to Joshua, it's like be strong and courageous, Lord.
Hmm.
Why? Not because you're so awesome, because the Lord goes before you.
Yeah.
I'm in Matthew 28 in my journaling, of course, hey, go and make disciples, and lo, I'm with you always.
Yeah.
There's a reason you can achieve the mission that's set out in front of you. And there's, I've learned a lot about trusting God in a lot of ways, but I will say 100% nothing compares to the amount of faith that I've learned while
Mhm.
trying to make payroll and experiment with marketing and looking at the profit and loss reports and the upcoming expenses and not knowing whether or not I'm going to get enough leads and make enough
Hmm.
sales to cover all that. And that's over 60 plus months now being in that business, 5.5 years. It amazes me every month that I stare down a bigger number as we grow,
Mm-hmm.
that I still get challenged with my faith, right?
Yeah.
And I look back 66 months and I'm like, he's answered the call for me every
Look at
single
that. He's been
time.
faithful every time.
Why? But month 67, right? It's not going to work out this month,
Yeah.
And so like I've grown. I'm still growing, but I've grown a lot, and just like,
Mhm.
hey, it's there. The work is there. The people are there.
Mhm.
Again, you learn to trust the process, and that's what God, I think, is asking us to do spiritually. To trust
Mhm.
me in this.
Yeah.
See if I don't open up the floodgates, right?
Yeah.
Challenge me in these
I
things.
love it. It's the only test he says, test me in this. Don't test me on anything else, but test me
Yes,
on
yes.
that. Doug, when you acquired and then rebranded the company as the Can Do Crew, you weren't just changing the name, you were making a promise about your culture. What did you
Yeah.
want that name to represent?
I wish I could say I had this like brilliant plan from the beginning, but I truly put it in the hand of the rebranding company, to
Hmm.
name it whatever it needed to be named, and make it memorable. Um, but when we accepted the name Can Do Crew, which we did in our very first meeting, and they were blown away, like, well, you're really not making me work this hard for this. Um, I liked it. I see a lot of like people are getting real creative with their brands across the United States, and
Hmm.
if the moment, of course, I know my feed is fed by this stuff because I've searched it and I've done it, and so
Right.
I probably see a
You've got
lot
the
more.
algorithm trained, or
Yes,
it's got
yes.
you trained, however it works.
But what I've noticed in a lot of the names is it's clever and cute, but there's no brand promise with
Hmm.
it. And it was really important to me out of the options that we had that can do stood for something.
Hmm.
And we backed into it. It wasn't a leading process, but we backed into it as a support for Philippians 4:13, and I can do all things through him who gives me strength.
Hmm.
And messaging it can be awkward sometimes because you have branding that has to happen in your culture internally, but it doesn't
Hmm.
always make sense to the external customer. You're not going to take every message you do internally out there. Otherwise, you're going to be telling your customer about, all the profits you want to make, and and they're like, "Oh, we want you to make a little less profits and take care of us." But the can do, you don't have to create a dichotomy around that. It's like, you can instill that within your team, this can-do mindset that and certainly, and we don't shy away. I would say somebody described it this way. We're Bible adjacent. Like it's
Okay.
just right there, but we're
Yeah.
not trying to, we recognize we got people of all sorts and types coming in, and
Sure.
I'm not trying to be, bash them over the head, but they're not going to work here very long before they realize that, our spiritual lives matter.
Hmm.
But it sends that message that this is, we believe that you're capable of anything, and there's
Yeah.
there's a reason why, and it's because we got a God. It's through Him who gives me strength, and that's on our ball caps. It's on the back of our T-shirts that we hand out.
Yeah.
But it also sends a great message to our clients about who they're supporting because they're seeing it.
Hmm.
They see that on their shirts. But it does speak to the caliber of the work that we do, right? We can do what we say we're going to do, we can do. Now we have a commercial that plays off of that. Like, can
Uh-huh.
you teach me about Bitcoin? Can you get my frisbee off the roof? Which we could do that. We're obviously not promising the world that, we're going to fix everything. We're not a jack of all trades, but the integrity that's driven by that brand promise is what we say we're going to do, we can do, and we'll deliver on it. So.
And since I already know the story, I'm going to lead a little more. Uh, One of the major factors in choosing it was every time you looked at it, you
It
smiled or
made me
laughed.
smile.
It
Yeah, yeah, made,
brings you some joy. And
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, after hearing that story, I've appreciated Phil for Philippians 4:13 a whole lot
Bill.
more. So I love that. Your background in ministry gives you a unique perspective. How has shepherding people influenced the way you now lead employees, you serve customers, and you build a business?
Um, I try. I was just answering a thread this morning on a coaching group we have, and it was like, how do I know when to let go of somebody?
Mhm.
And and I think how you let go of people, because it's going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
I think it probably says more about how you run your business than maybe anything else.
Hmm.
Because as a leader, like we have to look at the mirror first. And you know, we know that we're saved by grace and God
Hmm.
has unimaginable patience with us. And you know, we can't have never ending patience with people,
Sure.
but I think that that principle has to flow into how we, you know, how we treat our team members and how we get them to the place where by all means necessary, you know, we're
Mhm.
setting them up for success with clarity, clear goals, accountability, frequent
Mhm.
coachings. So that at the end of the day, when you like, they have to ultimately they're self-selecting to be out of the business if it comes to that point. Like it has been that clear. I've made it, you know, I've given you all the tools, I've given you all the coaching, and you've refused
Mhm.
to accept that, and you made your choices.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to teach my leaders the same thing: is that we look in the mirror first. Like, can we go to bed at night knowing that,
Yeah.
you know, if anything, when we get to that point, we're helping that person either learn that final lesson they need to be more successful somewhere
Hmm.
else, or maybe we've helped them decide that this isn't the right career for them
Right.
and they just need to look for something else altogether.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's driven by just the grace that we know spiritually,
Hmm.
and it's doing, you know, doing to others as you would have them do to
Amen.
you.
Yeah.
Like, will somebody give me like I remember Dave Ramsey talking about a guy that rose to be a VP in his organization, and he was just about fired early on in his career.
Hmm.
And he had the wisdom to tell whoever was coming to say, "Hey, I think we need to get rid of this guy." He had the wisdom to tell him, "Well, have you clarified your expectations?
Yeah. So
Does he know
important.
what the deliverables are?"
Yeah.
And he did not. You know, and one conversation with one clarity, this guy was an Energizer bunny in succeeding at all the things that his boss did not need him to succeed at.
Yeah. You're doing
And
great, except for
the
why I
moment he
hired
got
you.
that, the moment he got that clarity, he applied all that same passion and energy. I mean, that's kind of the Apostle Paul story, right? You know,
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
this
Just
guy had passion in all the wrong areas, and God said, I know
you
how to
need
use
one
this
thing. You need to know who Jesus is. Oh, okay.
guy.
Good. Yeah. Thanks.
So,
Thanks for sharing that. It is great, and it really is. I love that you landed there. That it really is treating people the way you want to be treated, and you hear it so often. It's unfair to be unkind, or it's
yes.
unkind to not be disclosing and saying, "Hey, you're not measuring up here. Here's the real goal, and this is what it takes." Often, home service businesses compete on price. You've chosen a different path to build a company that's about trust and culture and service. Why do you believe those things ultimately win?
Well, one thing, it's just not fun to compete on price.
It's a race to the bottom, they
It is
often
a
say.
race to the bottom. That
Yeah.
was my next sentence. Um, a real turning point for me, and you know, I recommend anybody. It's not easy to go to a shop in your backyard, right? Because you're all
Hmm.
competitors, no matter what industry you're in. But get outside of your radius. Go find other companies that are doing things well. Build some relationships, get in coaching groups. You know, fly to those if you have to.
Hmm.
But we just had to go about 2 hours north of here into Fresno to a company that, you know, was doing a lot of things really well. And they're highly successful today. But we did this about 3 summers ago. Kelly and I went up there, and their prices were among, even though it's Fresno, it's not like LA or New York. Their
Hmm.
prices were among the highest in the nation.
Hmm.
And we were at the time priced kind of like mom and pop. You know,
Right.
we had just rebranded. We were spending a lot of money and not changing our prices.
Hmm.
And that's not a recipe for success, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
But what caught me and what we walked away with there is they started talking about people who were changing their zip codes,
Hmm.
people who were able to put money down for a house, people who
Hmm.
were um, able to put their kids through college, and they drew a line in the sand, said we if the owners of the business succeed, but the people that are coming to work for them every day are not finding success in life because
Mm.
it's the trades. You don't have to have a college degree, and it's the trades, and
Yeah.
they should just, they said we've refused to settle for being successful at the top and not creating a lot of
Mm.
successful people within the business along the way. And I had always preached, you take care of your people and they'll take care of your customers.
Right.
But I was priced in a way where it was impossible for me to take care of my people. And I was thinking, okay, I got to keep the prices low to win more jobs and make the
Hmm.
customers like us. But every time I raised prices over the years, we sold more.
Yeah.
So there's a misnomer there. People, I don't even if it's conscious or unconscious, I don't know, but there is a price point at which certain customers would be like, yeah, you're probably not a good company if you're
Mm.
priced at that.
Right. Yeah.
Now some of
There's a
them are
reason it's
always
so
going to look
cheap.
some of them are always going to look for dirt cheap. It's not, it's systematically that way, but there's a lot of data to support that if you're not at a certain price point, people just don't think you got it all together.
Well,
Um,
and what would you say to the point there that even a lot of times the person who is value shopping quotation marks, they're really not the clients that you want to serve. They're not the kind of clients that you're able to meet their expectations. They're more demanding. They're more dissatisfied. They gripe a
since
lot.
since we talked last week,
Uh-huh.
round one of this interview,
Yeah.
I had a guy that we've been working with for 5 or 6 years on a unit sale that I discounted way more than I wanted to,
Hmm.
and I put some final incentives on there to get him to pull the trigger, and he still didn't. And he said, "I'll have an answer." He told us probably 5 times, "I'll have an answer for you on this date." And last weekend, I told my sales guy. I said, are you ready to pull the plug on this guy? Because he sent he's like, I got
Yeah.
one more person. And I said, if you support it, pull the plug. Because I think unless this is the most perfect install that we've ever done in our life, one, we're not making our margins on the job to begin with because we
Hmm.
discounted it. And two, if it's not perfect, this is the kind of customer that is going to turn our lives into a living hell.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
and so you have to be able to walk away. And there were times in my development early on, I couldn't walk away from that stuff.
Yeah.
The pressure was too
I got
great.
to have the money.
Yes, yes. And that is not a fun place to be.
No,
So,
it's misery for you.
yep.
Um, we've only got a few more minutes left, really, Doug. I'd like for you to speak to a little bit this transition when you decide I want to be in business for myself. You could have stayed where you were. You could have started something from scratch, but you chose to go out and purchase a business that was already running, functioning, doing well, but you
Yeah.
also saw some room for growth. What was that thought process for? And then really, what are the metrics? Because there are going to be people listening and watching who are either in a business and they want to add one, or they say, I really want to go. I don't know if I should start, if I should franchise, if I should buy something existing. What was that thought process like for you?
Um, I I'm not a technician, so that was step one. I mean, if somebody out there is super handy and can start, there's definitely a realm where you can start your own business. You can make a lot of money, and maybe you have
Mhm.
2 or 3 employees, and that's fantastic if that's how you're wired. But the business is gonna own you as much as you own it.
Yeah,
It's not gonna be you're not
which
gonna be
is not the
empowering
goal.
people, and you're gonna have to go through those transitions where if you don't grow substantially, it doesn't make sense to hire people
Mhm.
because the overhead is too high. So I had no choice but to look for a business to begin with that already had a good foundation in our community. I had 5,000 customers in the CRM when I bought it.
Mhm.
Um, there were 6 employees. My wife was still going to be working with the high school, and so it was just me and those 6 employees. There was enough work to be able to generate to pay me a much lower salary that I get you than what I had in the oil
This is the
fields.
faith risk.
you know, so I wasn't just walking into instant profitability by any means, but you know, there was also that immediate drive that if I don't grow this to 10, 12, 13 employees, then it's really not going to be that beneficial. So
Right.
it's akin to kind of like Cortez, burning the ships, right? You don't you can't leave yourself an out,
Right.
and anybody that goes into business has probably burned the ships, like
Hmm.
unless they got a major trust fund in the background.
Yeah.
It's
Which is not most of us.
not most of us. We're going to have to do a lot of hard work. I think the work would have been way harder to just start from scratch.
Mhm.
It would have been next to impossible for me. I would have had to gone through too many years of education and training
Right.
to get to that point. Um, when I looked at, we bought it as a stock sale. We weren't ripping apart assets.
Hmm.
So that wasn't as beneficial for me on the tech side, but I wasn't ready to try to rebrand something from day one. That was a pretty scary proposition
Right.
until I had a couple of years of operations under the belt. Um, when I looked at the books, I wasn't going through a broker. It was a biz buy sell. So it was just
Hmm.
me and the owner. I think the EBITDA was 38,000. So on $1 million of revenue. So you had indicators like,
Right.
okay, they're busy,
Yeah.
there's activity,
Did that scare you?
instantly I knew that there's some efficiency issues here because you shouldn't be at 38,000 EBITDA on
Yeah.
$1 million of revenue. So
Right. Did any of that scare you?
not when once I got into conversation, could look at the books, and
Okay.
I wasn't an expert by any means at looking
Hmm.
at cash flow and profit and loss statements. I'm much better today, but I looked at things, especially the market. Marketing was something that really intrigued me. Um, he was spending what he should have been spending on marketing, but it was very ineffective.
Right.
So he was spending about 10 to 12% in marketing, which should have
Mhm.
led him to a lot of significant growth, and it wasn't happening.
Okay.
And you could see very easily because it all went to one marketing provider, and it was all going to pay-per-click ads, which are super expensive
Hmm.
and not efficient at all.
Right.
And so I saw $100,000 right then that I could reallocate and start putting a major shift on the way we did marketing. That's what
Hmm.
gave me the most hope.
Okay.
Um, and so, and it was right on. And I didn't spend that the greatest in the first couple of years. In fact, I was reluctant to let go of 10 to 12%. I was doing about 4.5. But because we were so diligent on review collections and,
Hmm.
social referrals, we still grew 25 or 30%. And I didn't spend 100,000,
Right.
I was spending a lot less. Um, as I began to trust advisors around me and diversify the marketing, we are up in that 9 to 10% even today. But we've been growing 50, 90, 65% in the
Right.
last 3 years. So there's, yeah, surround yourself with voices of people that have done it before and trust them, even if
Hmm.
it doesn't feel right. And marketing is going to be a huge part of any owner's job if you want to grow the company. So you better spend a lot of time with it
Right.
and study it, and then trust the fact that out of the 100% of money that you spend, it's what they say about marketing. It's working. 50% of it is working. I just don't know what 50%.
Exactly where it is. Yeah. And since you've mentioned it a couple of times, you've talked about how important it is to have that group, whether it's a mastermind, a coaching group, somebody may not call it a mastermind, but people who've been there. Why has that been so important for you?
Because business ownership is lonely. When I wasn't doing it, it was the most lonely place I've probably ever been. So,
Yeah.
um, Kelly, my wife wasn't working in it. She didn't understand everything we were going through, and I was spinning every plate, as we were growing in the first years, and I didn't give myself time to
Mhm.
engage in what was available to me then, but I didn't really know about it or know the value of it.
Yeah.
When we went to our first mastermind, we built relationships in one 3-day weekend that are sustained even today, and it got us plugged into a community that kept us from feeling alone. You know,
Yeah. For
I've
sure.
got I've got some, sweat equity partners right now, and there's nothing better than getting on. We're going through a hard time. They looked at Kelly and I the other day, about a month or two ago when we weren't feeling very good, and they said, "You guys need to realize we are not going to let you fail."
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I needed that right now.
Mike, how good? I mean, that
Yeah.
was, you got people in your corner. It's amazing.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, for sure. And Doug, as you think back, basically the things you've learned, if there was one thing you wish could have learned earlier, super early, maybe even before you actually pulled the trigger on purchasing a company and becoming a business owner, what's the number one thing for you? You think it all happened at the right time, God's timing, but man,
Yeah.
it would have been so much better if I would have learned this, known this, done this.
Oh gosh. Seems like everything. I mean, I definitely wish I'd have doubled down. Like the 2 years that I did not, where I grew 25, which 25% on a million in this industry, that could be 10 AC units in a
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
Not a lot of work to grow that much where
Uh-huh.
when you're at that point. That was in the middle of COVID and coming out of COVID. And those 2 years, there were companies that were not running that efficiently that were still growing 80, 90%. Because I mean the shelves in Home Depot were cleared out. Everybody was
Right.
doing home
Yeah.
projects. And we're starting to come out of it, but the replacements and the things, it's been a rough 3 years in the trades. And you can talk to, warehouses in our industry and stuff. They've
Hmm.
been down 20, 30, 35%,
Huh.
2, 3 years in a row,
Wow.
which happens to be when I grew 50, 90, and 65%.
Okay.
And in the back of my mind, I'm like, what did I leave on the table those other 2 years?
Hmm.
If I'd have known more about how to structure the marketing spend and get
Okay.
our name out there faster. So
Okay. Good. Thanks. All right. You ready for the lightning round?
I am. I think I'm more ready this week. So
Okay. Most influential leadership book.
oh well, I have to give tribute to Donald Miller on this one. When you'd actually think true influence, it was a pivotal point and shift to put the principles of hero on a mission into practice. So,
Okay. Morning quiet time or evening reflection?
oh, definitely morning quiet time. My brain
Okay.
shuts down big time. There's no reflecting after 8 o'clock.
That's what I say often when I finally sit down. Like if I sit in the recliner, it's all over. I'm fixing to go to sleep. And
Yeah, kids
anytime
better
I
not
slow
ask me
down,
to help with any homework after a
yeah.
certain point. I'm like, you will fail. I will help you fail this test.
One word that defines great leadership.
It's integrity.
Hmm. What's the best lesson you learned in your years of vocational ministry, or what I call more often traditional ministry that serves you today in ministry in the marketplace?
Oh man, I'm gonna give a $1,000 term. You're gonna know it instantly, but self-differentiation.
Mhm.
Um, the you need you gotta write that down.
This is my sheet where I
Are
teach
you
that.
kidding? Yeah. The ability to be me while being connected to you. And that was tough in ministry. It's
Mhm.
a mesh, like you, especially when your family depends on that paycheck. It was too
Mhm.
easy to let yourself become enmeshed and just go along to get along. But
Yeah.
you are stealing from the world if you do not bring to the world who God created you to be. And guess what? Sometimes when you are that, you're going to ruffle a few feathers and there's going to be conflict and there's things to work through. But that's the gift that you're giving to the world, I think. And that's what God wants you to give to the world. So,
It's so important. It's one of the things, yeah, every one of my leadership coaching clients, we talk about that
yep.
because the same thing you said, if your employee's not doing well, the business doesn't do well. But even more, if the owner, the leader's not doing well,
And
they,
we're in a world, face it, where they worship at the feet of empathy
yeah,
and there's no truth to go along with it. I
right.
love empathy. I think empathy is fantastic, but if it's not combined with truth,
Yeah.
you're doing nobody no good.
Yeah.
Everything.
Well,
Everywhere.
just read the Gospel of John and really just paused on the very beginning where it talks about Jesus. He was full of grace and truth.
Yeah.
And we think sometimes it's one or the other, and he says, no, it's both. Biggest mistake new business owners make in your eyes, or your own mistake.
Oh man. Um, I'd say it's not. I was good at surrounding myself with people in the business that could do the work. And I wasn't an operator, so I didn't have any problems trusting them to do
Hmm.
technical stuff because I couldn't do it myself. But not having a community. I'm like, as soon as you get into it, make sure you have a community I mean, and I've lived by this, better to learn from the mistakes of others than your own mistakes, right?
Right.
And you can do that. Like you can advance your knowledge and growth exponentially by just getting in the right room with the right people. So
Okay. If you could have lunch with any business leader, living or dead, who would it be, and what would your first question be?
I didn't know you had the first question thing last week.
I
So I
didn't.
struggled
I
on it.
kind
You
of keep you
didn't.
on your
You threw
toes.
it. You threw it. Um, I've gotten to go to London twice, and each time I've gone to the Churchill
Oh,
war rooms.
okay.
And so I was thinking about this. I was like, I would love to sit down with Winston Churchill.
Okay.
And I mean, a guy that could go through what he did and maintain his wit. And I think
Mm.
one of the phrases, you see all sorts of stuff in that museum. One of the phrases that stuck out to me was like, I am quite ready to meet my maker, but I am not so sure that my maker's ready to meet me. I mean, he was so like I think it would just be
Mm.
amazing to sit and pick his brain and see someone that could deal with that level of to rise up to the occasion at that
Mm.
time in our
Yeah.
country, our world's history, and still be so self-effacing. It's like he didn't let the court of public opinion keep him from being Winston.
Yeah.
And maybe
Speaking of
that's the
being
question.
independent and connected.
Maybe that's the question I would ask is how do you, again, you talk about self-differentiation, right? It's like, how did you do that with the pressure cooker that you were in? So,
Yeah, when everybody's got a voice. So,
yeah.
all right. What's one habit that made you a better leader?
Oh, um, it's reading my Bible.
Mm. Okay.
I think Keystone. I didn't do it very well until late in life.
Mm.
I'd read it when I had to teach, preach. I
Mhm.
mean, which is one of the reasons I love to teach, preach, because it forced me into it.
Okay.
But about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a friend who was doing a journaling Bible for his
Mm.
kids to give them when they graduate.
Mm.
So I'll be done with my second. My second one just started her senior year yesterday, and I'll be
Okay.
done with her Bible in December. So
Awesome.
I'm at the end of Matthew, and it what that does. I'm just not the kind of person that can do things for myself very
Mm.
easily, and I think
Mhm.
that's why I didn't read the Bible for a long time because
Mm.
it was always, and I could for teaching and preaching because it
Mhm.
was always for somebody else.
Right.
But just to read it,
Huh.
it was the daily Bible plans and going through the motion checking. It didn't motivate me.
Okay.
But when I realized I could do something that would be a gift, for my
Mm.
kids, and then I'm writing in these margins. The next thing I know, I was like, oh man, I need to flesh this out some more. And so I would write on Facebook, and then a couple years into that, I was like, I got a book there, So I compiled everything, and I've got a self-published book on Amazon, and I have that's an Old Testament devotional, and I'm working on the New Testament right now.
Awesome.
But it's like when you're doing things consistently over time,
Mm.
it becomes that's how culture works, right?
Yeah.
It changes the culture of who you are as a person and keeps you
Mm.
centered and making sure that you're not, drifting to a place you don't want to go to. And time is important, and we don't give. And this isn't just Bible reading, right? But we don't give a lot of things a lot of the time that they deserve anymore.
Yeah.
Probably because of this thing.
Yeah. So
Um,
much noise.
Yep.
Miss the
Noise.
signal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Signals versus noise. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Hey, man, this has been fantastic. Thanks for doing it. Take two.
All
Uh,
right.
and I appreciate what
Absolutely.
you've shared with our audience. If I'd like to end with this question. If you could talk to a young person who's thinking about starting a business, what would you tell them?
Um, I would, I would, and I see this with my kids. I've got at least one kid that's very entrepreneurial, and my oldest that just wants to make a lot of money.
However,
Yeah. Dad, can you just do this for me? She's like, you can help me start this business, right? It's like, I was like, your reason, your purpose, and your why has to be just set up first. And
yeah.
if you're going, and if it's to make money, then it's not going to work.
Run out. Yeah, it's going to be empty.
You have to be solving a problem that you're passionate about solving.
Okay.
And I'm not, I'll be honest, I'm not that passionate about plumbing and HVAC.
Okay. So how's it work for you?
It works for me because of what's underlying all that.
Yeah.
I'm solving trust issues. I'm solving, I mean, you got, moms that are home, maybe many of them single moms, and, we're going into a place that is one of the most, it's their intimate place, right? And how do we go in there in a way where they're not afraid, they're not going to get taken advantage of, they're not, and it would be the same, like if I'd have found a dozen other businesses that were in different lines of the trades, or I would still be doing it for the same reason, right? To
Yeah.
try to build trust and relationship and take care of people.
Yeah.
If you do that enough over time, then obviously it's going to create other opportunities. Someone might ask how when you die at age 85 and they're doing the funeral for you, how is running an HVAC and plumbing company getting you to the end of that story? That maybe is another conversation. But it became very clear that to run a successful business was going to be a catalyst for changing a lot of lives, not only while I'm in the business, whether it's my team members or my customers or my community, but if I do it well enough, then there are unnamed places in the world that are going to be the recipients of good things because of how well I stewarded this business. And that's how, just full transparency. I think if I read my obituary, there's a guy named Jose Luis that shows up with his grandkids at the day of my funeral, wherever it is, I'm going to be laid to rest. And, to stand up and say that I would not know Jesus, my kids would. If Doug hadn't done a good job
There you go.
with running that business.
That's awesome. Hey,
And it's a little more detailed than that, but if you can't create a vision of your end of life that doesn't shake you up emotionally, you need to rewrite it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You hadn't got there. Yeah. All right, Doug, thanks. Tell us first the name of the book. Is it available on Amazon?
It's called Eat These Words.
Okay.
And it's a 6 month. It's going to be designed to be around a 365-day, just daily reading, if Genesis to the maps and some application questions.
Yeah.
But so I've got 6 months, and hopefully in the near future, AI will expedite the editing of this next one, so it should go much quicker.
It'll be faster. All right. Use that thing for something good. All right. Somebody wants to get hold of you. How do they do that?
Email Doug at callcandocrew, CALLCANDO crew.com. And I'd be happy to open up a dialogue and walk through any of this journey that might help them and theirs. So
okay. Thanks so much for joining us on Kingdom Entrepreneur. And thank you for tuning in, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Want to encourage you to subscribe. And I know you've got so much benefit from this episode, so I encourage you to share it so that others can get it. And if you're looking for an opportunity to connect with other business owners and leaders in a mastermind, I'm putting together a group right now of business owners and leaders who see there's some benefit from working with other people who have similar and yet very different situations. So thanks for joining us. Have a great day. And remember, it's His kingdom and it's your calling. Serve Him well by serving others.